Howdy! It's Monday and I'm starting a new reading vlog. I normally had been filming in my plant room, but I have my washer going right now and it's super loud, so I decided to come in here today. Not the prettiest background, but it is what it is because I have to work with the light. So yeah, I just got home from work. It's going to be another super hot, humid week. You can tell by how sweaty I look. Yeah, but so the last video I posted was my Mafia Romance readathon vlog. That readathon was super fun, but I got almost super book slumpy after that readathon. That following Monday was actually the historical romance readathon, and I love historical romance, but I was just not in the mood to read any historical romance. So I was getting kind of sad because I was like, well, like, what am I going to read for this week? I ended up picking up a manga series. I finished reading the entire Tokyo Mew Mew series. It was very cute. I enjoyed it. I read like an omnibus collection. So there was like 3 volumes, and then they had an omnibus collection of Tokyo Mew Mew a la mode, which is basically like a sequel in a way to Tokyo Mew Mew. And yeah, it was super cute. I already knew what this series was about before reading it. I had watched, I think, almost the full anime series, or I got pretty far in it a long time ago. This series was like it came out in 2004. So this series was super popular during my like late elementary school, early middle school days. And I really loved the anime series growing up. It has some of my favorite things, like cute little animal-eared girls. There's like I don't even know if it's like a love triangle. There's just like multiple like romances in it for the heroine. Really cute characters. Everything's like pastry and cake themed. There's like a maid cafe. I don't know. It's super adorable. And so it's super nostalgic for me to read because I loved these characters whenever I was a lot younger. Reading it as an adult, it's kind of funny because like the plot of it just doesn't make any sense, especially Tokyo Mew Mew a la mode. There's so many plot holes. It makes absolutely no sense. It's so cheesy, but I still loved it. If I would give this series a rating, it would probably be like a 4-star. But yeah, I don't know. It was fun, but that was all that I read last week. So this week I do have a theme that I'm trying to go for, but I don't know, anything could happen. But I think I'm mostly going to read young adult romance for this week. And that's because I'm actually doing a buddy read with Heather from Heather's Happily Ever Afters. I'll link her channel down below. We read, what was it called? We read Serpent and Dove, not together, but like I read it and then she picked it up and then she liked the first book in the series. And yeah, we're going to buddy read Blood and Honey by Shelby Mahurin. This is the second book in the series. It's basically it's a fantasy series that focuses on a romance between a witch hunter and a witch. This is like a fantasy world, but they speak the French language a lot in this book. So it's like fantasy France in a way. And yeah, witchcraft is outlawed by like this highly religious society. But then stuff happens in the first book. It's really chaotic, but it was really good. I enjoyed it a lot. I don't know how much I'm going to be able to like talk about this book because it is a sequel. So there's a chance that there could be spoilers. So I'm probably going to have to be super vague about how I talk about this book. I actually have a reading vlog where I had read the first book in the series, so I'll link it down below too in case you're interested. But yeah, we're gonna buddy read this together. I believe she already started this morning. I'm kind of sad because I prefer listening to audiobooks, and I love whenever I have both the audio and the physical book, but my library hold isn't ready yet, and it might take like 2 days or more, so I'm going to try really hard to physically read this tonight. But yeah, I'm excited. It's, you know, young adult fantasy with like witches and like witchcraft and like scary religious leaders. I don't know. It's really cool. And yeah, part of the reason why I also want to mostly focus on young adult romance for this week is because I already started a young adult book prior to starting the buddy read with Heather. I started reading A Lesson in Vengeance by Victoria Lee. So I've actually had this checked out for a while now from my library, but I don't really pick young adult books up very often. But somebody actually put a hold on this, so I need to finish it this week. And I'm not very far along at all. I'm probably like, only a quarter of the way through. I started reading this yesterday. I'm really enjoying this. This is like, I think this is technically a horror suspense book, like young adult horror suspense. But there is a romance in this, but I don't know if this is like a true romance book and that there's going to be a happily ever after at the end. But basically, this follows our heroine. Her name is Felicity, and she's returning to school for her senior year, and she hasn't been back in a while because basically her girlfriend recently passed away. And so she had to take a break from school. She's come back to school, and then things are, you know, a lot different than they were before for her. So Felicity, the specific school that she goes to, I forgot what it's called. It's called Dalloway School. Basically, it's like a prestigious private school for girls. This is very much like a dark academia horror story. I actually picked this up because Olivia from Olivia Reads a Latte, she had a reading vlog where she was reading this book and she really enjoyed it. But yeah, so Felicity, she goes to the school because she has a really deep fascination with this event that took place in this specific house, because there's like multiple houses where the girls stay, and they're kind of like situated within those houses based on their like degree, or I don't know, it's not a college, it's like a high school, but they still have like specialty areas that they focus on in school. And all of the writers for the school, they are placed at this house called the Godwin House. And Godwin House is infamous because I believe whenever the school was like first open in the 1800s, there were a group of girls that were staying in Godwin House, and one of the girls was violently murdered during a ritual. So these girls were interested in witchcraft. They, you know, basically murdered one of their classmates, and then within like a short amount of time, each of those girls started to die off. So yeah, very spooky. The school's tied with like witchcraft, but also this murder mystery. It's really vague on whether or not these students were actually practicing witchcraft. And Felicity is super enamored with this. She's basically, part of the reason why she wanted to go to school is because she wants to do, I would call it like a capstone project, but it's basically like to graduate from the school, she has this huge project where she's going to focus on these women that were involved in this witchcraft scandal. And I'm only a quarter of the way through, but basically it's kind of vague on how Felicity's girlfriend passed away. Now, this book features something that I love in horror books, which is where we as readers, we can't tell if the events happening in the book are paranormal or if it's psychological. And I love that. There's definitely some spooky paranormal stuff happening in this book, but then it's like, is Felicity kind of cuckoo crazy obsessed now and she might have hurt her girlfriend, or was it more complicated than that? I don't know. Felicity's a very unreliable narrator, which I also really like in horror books because we don't know. So yeah, there's all these weird mysteries, and then on top of that, there is a new girl at Felicity's school, and she is in the same grade and like house as Felicity. I can't remember her name. Oh yeah, the girl's name is Ellis, and Ellis is this like writing prodigy. She's only 17 years old, and she's already been nominated for like a writing award, and she has like really famous books out already. And Ellis and Felicity are starting to have some sort of chemistry, which, you know, we love a good sapphic story. However, it's not certain if Ellis has alternative motives for getting to know Felicity. There's something kind of off about her, and it's like, I can't tell if she wants to get close to Felicity because of a book that she's writing. She's writing kind of like, I think, a murder mystery, and so she's trying to get close. I feel like she's trying to get close to Felicity because of the scandal involving her and her girlfriend. She also might be trying to get close to her because she's kind of implying that she knows about the witchcraft stuff happening in the book. And I forgot to mention, part of the reason why Felicity and her girlfriend like had all this stuff happen is because Felicity and her girlfriend were starting to also practice witchcraft. And yeah, and so Ellis is kind of hinting that she's interested in that kind of stuff. So I'm like, I don't know how I feel about that. But then they also have this weird like draw towards each other that could also be interpreted as true romance. But I don't know. It's really good. It's kind of slow moving. It's mostly focusing on Felicity trying to work through her grief and adjusting to going back to school and having like her social dynamic change. I also can say that like this isn't a fantasy, it's like dark academia. There are some like paranormal stuff that's happening. Yeah, I don't know. It's really spooky. It's giving me like the dark academia vibes. My like limited understanding of what dark academia is, because I'm kind of an old lady and I don't really get the cool kid lingo nowadays. God. But yeah, I'm enjoying it so far, but I'm going to take a break from reading this because my library does have an audio version of this, so I'm going to start listening to it tomorrow so that I can physically read Blood and Honey until hopefully my audiobook comes in for this. But yeah, that's it. I'm gonna go. I will check back in with you guys later. Hey guys, it's Wednesday, and I finished a book. Yeah, didn't bother checking in yesterday just for like video length's sake. But yeah, I got some reading done, and I finished Blood and Honey by Shelby Mahurin. This was the book that I was buddy reading with Heather. I believe she's not finished yet, so we'll still be like discussing it probably tonight. But yeah, I finished this at work today because my Libby hold came in, so I just listened to the audio while I was at work. And yeah, I gave this a 4-star. I gave the first book in this series a 4-star too. Yeah, I can't really talk too much about what this book was, or like I can't really talk much about what it's about because this is a second book in a series. But basically, again, this follows a witch and witch hunter. At this point, it's a former witch hunter, and they are on the run along with some allies and friends. And yeah, they're trying to stop the big bad, but things are kind of a mess, and they have to try and like formulate this really complicated plan. This book is technically young adult, but I know new adult isn't like a real genre, if that makes sense. Like if you go into a library, you're not gonna find a new adult section or whatever, but this very much reads like a new adult fantasy romance because there is a bit of steam in this. It's not as explicit as I have like read in adult romance, if you get what I'm saying. But yeah, and this book was also much darker than the first one. There's tons of violence in this. It's like pretty graphic and gory. But I think I feel like I enjoyed this one more than the first book, even though I gave it the same rating. But I think I enjoyed it more because of like how it felt much darker. The first book we're mostly stayed in the like main city. I forgot what it was called. What's it called? There's like a map in here. It's called Caesarine. So they were mostly just at Caesarine. But in this, they travel throughout this like forested area, which is like, this is like the land of Belterra. But yeah, they travel around Belterra and we get to like see more of like the world lore. There's different races. We get to see, what are they called? They call them loup-garou. It's a French word, but they're basically werewolves. So there's werewolves in this. They talk about mermaids, but we didn't see them in this one. I imagine it's going to be in the third one. There's blood witches, which very much gave off like vampire vibes in my opinion, and that was a really cool aspect. Yeah, it was super good. I love the world that this takes place in. Me and Heather were discussing it, and like I really do feel like that this author was heavily inspired by The Hunchback of Notre Dame, specifically the Disney version. I've never read the original one before, but like the first book, one of the main characters, he very much gave off like Frollo vibes. In this one, there is a new character named Claude. I think his last name's pronounced Devereaux, I don't know. But he's basically like Clopin or whatever his name is, the jester character from Hunchback of Notre Dame. So that was cool. And they even explore some catacombs in this, which is very much like the Court of Miracles and Hunchback of Notre Dame. I don't know. It's one of my favorite Disney movies, and so I just think that that's so cool. I don't know if like she really was inspired by it, but like I don't know. I can just like see it while reading this. The magic in this book is so cool and like unique. I've never read, well, I don't read a lot of fantasy, but I've never read any sort of like book that had magic that functions like it does in this one. Yeah, ended on a cliffhanger. I was very stressed out about the ending. I was very shocked. There was some twisty turns. I can say that this author is good at surprising me, because I got really surprised by the first book too. But the reason why it's not a 5-star read for me is because there are like aspects to the plot of this book that really confuse me. Like I don't really understand some of the decisions that the characters made, and they're like they would mention stuff that I felt like I just like couldn't remember them mentioning before, and so it was just like me trying to follow the plot and like me having trouble with it. I don't even know if that's the author's fault. That's probably just me. But yeah, I still really liked it. I gave it a 4-star, and I'm super excited for the third book in this series. It's the third and last book, and it's called Gods and Monsters. I don't think it's out yet because I had to pre-order a paperback version of it. So yeah, it's not out yet, so I have to wait. And yeah, it was, I don't know, it was super good. And it was fun buddy reading with Heather. Well, I don't know, I'll ask her if she wants to buddy read the third one whenever it comes out. But yeah, I enjoyed it and I finished it. So now I can carry on and continue reading some more YA. Yeah, so I am going to continue reading A Lesson in Vengeance. Again, I'm only like less than halfway through this. I started this before I started Blood and Ash, and I haven't, or not Blood and Ash, I'm sorry, Blood and Honey, and I haven't picked it up since. But yeah, I also have the audio to this, so I feel like I can finish it pretty quickly. But yeah, I'm excited. I'm glad that I'm starting to really enjoy reading young adult books, just because since I didn't really read a ton growing up, I feel like I missed out on a lot of good like young adult books. And yeah, I don't know, I'm excited. But yeah, I'm gonna go and I will check back in with you guys later. Bye-bye. Hey, it's Saturday. I can't remember what day I last checked in. Yeah, I've just been so bad about actually vlogging this week. Like, I love making videos, but for some reason, I just, like, taking the time to sit down and talk to the camera has been really hard this week, and I don't know why. But yeah, so, since the last time that I talked to you guys, I actually finished 2 books. But yeah, so I think I said at the beginning of this vlog that I was just gonna focus on like YA books, but I realized that I unintentionally have read young adult romance books that all have something to do with like witches. I don't know, I guess I'm drawn to it or something, but yeah, I had a really good reading week. I'll talk about the book, or I'll go ahead and talk about the book that I finished reading right after I finished reading Blood and Honey. I finished reading A Lesson in Vengeance. I didn't really care for this too much. I gave it a 2.5 star. Like, most of the book was fine. I was just really disappointed by it. My favorite aspect about this book, my favorite horror trope is whenever, like, we as readers or viewers or whatever, we're not able to tell if the things that are happening are because of supernatural or paranormal reasons, or if it's because of psychological reasons, you know, like an unhinged character. The main character in this book is an unreliable narrator. I should probably mention some of the triggers in this book. Obviously, there's like death of a loved one. There's violence, death of an animal. So if you're sensitive to that, be wary. It wasn't of like a pet, but it still made me uncomfortable reading about. There is also, I guess, like underage drinking and alcohol abuse. Yeah, I think that's it. Our heroine is definitely an unreliable narrator because she talks about how like mental illness runs in her family and that her mom actually had like a really bad episode at some point in her life. And after having such a traumatic experience and being involved in her friend's death, her lover's death unintentionally, she's obviously suffering through a lot of trauma. And like there's a part in the book where she stops taking her medication, which you should never do, you know, and then she'll like randomly start taking again. I don't know. There's a lot of things that made her an unreliable narrator. The reason why I did not really care for this in the end is because of the ending. Like I kind of predicted what was going on, which is fine. But then the true ending of the book, I was just kind of like, wow, that was underwhelming, and it didn't really serve any purpose, in my opinion. Like, I just kind of like I just didn't care about how it ended, and I was like, eh, whatever. I didn't feel like I wasted my time with this book, though, because parts of this I really did enjoy. I loved the spooky bits where these girls were, like, trying to practice, like, witchcraft, and then the heroine is the only person that believes that that stuff is real, so it's like these people that are playing with things that they don't really understand. I kind of liked the weird, tense, romantic, sexual chemistry between her and like her love interest. I already forgot their names. The main character's name is Felicity, and then the romantic interest is named Ellis, but like Ellis just gave me so much bad vibes that I also just wasn't really invested in it. I don't know. Yeah, it's like I gave it a 2.5 stars. I don't regret reading it, but I didn't really care for it in the end. So I gushed about Blood and Honey. Really, really loved this book. Can't wait to read the next one. However, I think that I just discovered my very first young adult fantasy series that I really love. So today I finished reading Kingdom of the Wicked by Kerri Maniscalco. I can't pronounce her last name. Kerri Maniscalco. This is a library copy, so it's kind of like grungy looking. Y'all, I gave this 5 stars. This is probably my first like YA book that I've ever given 5 stars for. I loved this book so much. I don't know if this would, I guess this is technically like young adult paranormal romance, or maybe it's young adult fantasy romance, because this takes place in Italy, specifically like in the Sicily area. Most of the characters in this book are Sicilian. And I believe the author, her ancestry is actually, yeah, she said her great-grandparents were originally from Sicily and that they immigrated here to the US. And so yeah, there's like lots of like Sicily culture in this book, and it's about like witches and stuff. And yeah, so that's like this interesting like Italian witchcraft that's happening in this book. It follows these 2 twins. They're twin sisters. One's named Amelia and one is named Vittoria. They have like a really lovely family life, and their family owns like a really popular restaurant. She's super close to like her parents, but especially her nonna, like her grandma. And yeah, her grandma and her mom, they're witches. And I believe her mom's a witch. They didn't really mention the mom practicing witchcraft too much, but I think, yeah, never mind. The mom is a witch. But yeah, so this is like, it's kind of like a fantasy world, but not, because I think it takes place in like 18th century or 19th century. I think it's 19th century Sicily. But then obviously there's like magical elements, like there's like witches. They mention shapeshifters. There's freaking vampires. And also there are demons. This book essentially is about a witch and a prince of hell having to kind of sort of form an alliance to solve this huge mystery. The mystery being that someone or something is killing witches and stealing their hearts, like literally like carving their bodies out and taking their physical heart out. And Amelia is dragged into this because her twin sister is one of the victims. So that's a trigger in this book, is death of a loved one, and it's a very violent death. That's not a spoiler because that's like within the plot of this book. Obviously, like it happens really early on. And yeah. And then in this world, like demons don't, you know, they can't just like freely walk around very often. Like they're present, but they have certain rules that they have to like strictly follow. Like hell is basically regulated by law or something. It's kind of weird because it's like the devils and demons are evil, but then they also serve like a function. So it's like they're doing these things because it serves a purpose, right? I don't know. It's kind of hard to explain. And yeah, there are these 7 demons these 7 princes of hell, and they obviously all stand for like specific sins. The specific demon prince that she kind of works with is Wrath, and that's what he goes by. They apparently have their own like secret names, but nobody knows what they are. And Wrath wants to investigate these witches' deaths because all of the victims have been witches that have either wanted to or are able to basically become the queen of hell. So these witches have planned or something like that, like they are able to like willingly sell their soul to the head leader. He's like a prince of hell, but really he's like the devil equivalent. Like he is the devil, the ruler of hell, and they're willing to marry him. And so Wrath, who offered to help his brother Pride, and Pride is like the devil in this, he offered to help Pride, like, you know, contact the witch that he, you know, picked or whatever, and be like, hey, you know, you want to sell your soul to the devil? Haha. And yeah, apparently Amelia's sister, she seemed to be in the process of doing that, but maybe not, because it just seemed like out of character for her. And Wrath was at the scene of the crime, and Amelia did like a summoning circle to try and, like, she meant to just summon like any demon to try and get the demon to like help her find out more information to try and solve her murder. but then she somehow summoned wrath, and she was like, you were at the crime scene, you killed my sister, and he's like, whoa, nah, I didn't, but maybe we can help each other, kind of thing. And yeah, so this book is basically like, it's equal parts murder mystery, paranormal action type stuff, fantasy elements. And the romance in this book is so good. It's definitely slow burn. Definitely like really, really slow burn. Like if you're somebody that doesn't like slow burn romance, maybe you won't like this. But I loved it. I loved Amelia as a character. She's like the perfect mirror of Wrath, because she is so intent on vengeance for all these women, including her like twin sister that have been murdered. And so it's like her personality with this like really like skulky, broody, like angry, what's the word that I'm looking for? He's kind of like pretentious prince of hell that is Wrath. And yeah, I don't know, I loved it so much. A big emphasis in this book is the mystery aspect. Like, I felt like I was on the edge of my seat this whole time. Like, I was just like, I want to know what the fudge is going on. And yeah. However, this book ended on a cliffhanger. So I was like, no. Because I like, well, okay, for one, here's a con about this book. I didn't really understand the ending. Like, the cliffhanger is pretty, like, intense to where, like, it confused me. Like, I was like, what the hell just happened? And I was really surprised because I went to, like, look up kind of, like, spoiler-free type explanations about how this book ended. A lot of people were complaining about this book. I guess a lot of people didn't like it. But I really, really liked it. I loved how magic functions in this book. They really put an emphasis on how like there is distinctions between dark and light magic, but just because something is dark magic doesn't mean that it's evil. It's just you normally have to pay a bigger price to perform that magic. Like Amelia's like best friend is actually like a dark witch or whatever. And yeah, I don't like whenever witchcraft and books try to put, like they try to split magic into either good or evil categories, because modern witchcraft, it isn't, you know, it's not like that. It really heavily depends on the intent of the person that's doing it, whether or not something is good and bad, you know what I'm saying? And yeah, I loved the lore in this book. There's lots of like legends about witches and princes, and they call them Strega witches, which are basically like star witches. And like there's like this like fairy tale that the twins grew up listening to, and then they realize that it's real and that it's actually telling like the history of like why witchcraft exists and why like all of these things are happening in this magical world. I don't know, it was just so good. I feel like I could keep rambling on about this book, but yeah, it was a freaking cliffhanger, and now I'm like, what am I supposed to I know what I'm going to do. I have the second book. I have the second library book. I picked it up because it was available, and I was like, well, I'm reading the first one. If I like it, I'll just immediately pick up the second one. And I'm so glad I did because of that freaking cliffhanger. But yeah, this is Kingdom of the Cursed. Yeah, it looks like it's a bit longer than the first book, which is fine. And, yeah, I'm so excited to read this. And in fact, I think I'm going to do a part 2 of this vlog. I think I'm going to title this vlog like Witchy YA books or something, because I want to read this second book so badly that I just want to jump into it. So yeah, I think I'm going to do a part 2 where I just focus on young adult books again, because I actually have like a couple other books that I have checked out that I could probably get to once I finished it. But yeah, that's it, guys. Yeah, I'm going to go. Thanks for watching, guys. If you made it this far, how about you leave me like the crystal ball emoji, maybe? If there is one. I'm pretty sure there is one, because it's kind of like witchy and spooky. Yeah, well, I'm gonna go. If you want, you could subscribe to my channel, because then that way you'll be able to see whenever I upload the second part of this vlog. And yeah, I'm super excited to get back into reading this series. And yeah, thanks for joining me, guys. I'm gonna go. Bye-bye.